Imagine for a moment that the year is 1996 and you're working as a 17-year-old farming apprentice on a 1,300-acre livestock farm based along the Jurassic coast. Your tractor for the day is a 4-wheel drive Ford 6810 equipped with column shift gears and a quickie loader. Today's job? To clean out some cattle sheds that have been home to 100-odd cows for the winter. Now normally you would cart them up to a dung heap, but not today. As today your boss has enlisted the help of a well-known local contractor and he's just turned up in his voucher tractor and massive rear discharge spreader. That contractor is Philip Trim, and today Philip himself is at the wheel. Now that was my first experience working with Phil, but in the 24 years since it certainly wouldn't be the last. This DVD picks up the story in Easter 2019. The year I started filming Philip's crews, which over the years has included my brother, my cousins, me, and Phil's longest serving employee, Peter, aka my dad. Philip Trim Contractors started out in 1987 operating from their yard in Beer Regis. They've since moved down the road and have grown to a team of 30 plus operators and a number of critical office staff. Phil's kit currently includes, amongst other things, 2 Class Jaguar 900 series foragers, a JCB 435S, a JCB slew and telehandler, 2 sets of Class triple mowers, various Krone and Class rakes, 10 or more Valtra tractors, 2 John Deere 6250R tractors, 2 Xerions for slurry application, and a fleet of lorries for liquid waste management. Not forgetting their lineup of Richard Western silage trailers and side discharge spreaders, some Bunning rear discharge spreaders, and a mixture of twin and single axle Joskin, Richard Western, NC and high spec slurry tankers. They say silage time is the glamorous side of farming, but maybe glamorous isn't the right word. But for sure, most in the farming community will look forward to the smell of freshly cut grass and the unmistakable sound of a forager blowing silage into those high-sided silage trailers. For most large silage contractors, those foragers will begin chopping first cut silage grass around May time. Then onto the whole crop, as well as the second and third cut grass, and finally onto the maize, which can sometimes last right up until November time. That's a big chunk of the year these machines and operators are working extremely long hours. First in the field will more often than not be Peter and Steve with their Class triple mowers hooked up to a pair of John Deere 6250Rs. Once cut, the grass is usually left on the ground to wilt in the sun for a number of hours. As a rule of thumb, the mowers will stay a good few hours in front of the forager. However, before the forager can do its thing, the next machine into the field will be the rake, whose job it is to gather up the grass into nice tidy straight swaths, ready to be picked up by the forager. rake operator, you arguably have one of the easiest jobs on the silage crew. Once your rake is set up to the required width and height, your mission is simple. Stay ahead of the forager and don't let the rake tines hit anything such as a fence or tree. Oh, and keep those rows straight, unless you want the forager driver swearing at you on the CB radio. Most large contractors will run 2 or more foragers, especially if they intend to take on additional crops such as whole crop and maize. Not only does this provide peace of mind in the event of a breakdown, but also means one forager can be configured for silage while the other is set up for whole crop or maize, as switching from one crop to another isn't always a simple task. In the very early days, Phil actually started out with a mounted forager hooked up to a rear steer voucher, but soon went self-propelled and has never looked back. For Phil, class foragers are the way to go and currently works a 970 and 980. Phil often demos the offerings from Krone, John Deere, New Holland and others, but is yet to be convinced, staying loyal to class for the time being. The newest forager in Phil's lineup is the latest spec 2020 Class Jaguar 970, kitted out with silage pickup and 12-row Orbis maize header, which was first put to work in the 2020 maize season with experienced operator Kev Evans piloting. This 970 replaced Phil's older 970, which had the black livery and can now be found somewhere in Ireland.
Walking home late at night, maybe 2:30. A little drunk, but I'm alright, 'cause I've been hanging with you, and it feels like love. Tell me if I'm wrong, 'cause it feels like love. Yeah, it feels like love. Don't know what you do, but you make me feel fine. And you can't deny we are not just killing time. You should let me know if you want this true. Baby, you just make me feel crazy. A little crazy for you. Yeah. I think about you at night. I want you here with me. Am I out of my mind? Or is this how it should be? You make me sing about love. So just tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like love. Yeah, it feels like love. Yeah. Don't know what you do, but you make me feel fine. And you can't deny we are not just killing time. You should let me know if you want this true. Baby, you just make me feel crazy. A little crazy for you. A little crazy for you. Hey.
A little crazy for you now. A little crazy for you now. A little crazy for you now, baby.
Don't know what you do, but you make me feel fine. And you can't deny we are not just killing time. You should let me know if you want this true. Baby, you just make me feel crazy. A little crazy for you. I feel crazy. A little crazy for you, baby. Yeah, yeah. Little crazy for you now. Yeah, crazy for you.
If you agree that the rake operator has the easiest job on the silage crew, then at the other end of the spectrum you've got the often overlooked pit man. With trailers tipping new loads every 5 to 10 minutes, you better bring your A game. Not only must you keep up with the trailers, you need to roll the pit as well as deal with low roofs and often hard to access pits. Most will agree that the JCB 435S is the best machine for the job, but such a machine requires a highly skilled operator, and they don't come much better than Irish-born Andy McAfee, Phil's number one pitman. In years past, before Phil's move to JCB, you would have found a more traditional tractor and buck rake combo on the pit. Speaking from experience, I myself often drove Phil's Case MX150 on the pit in the late 2000s. While these days a shovel may be the preferred choice for the pit crew, it only really works well in wide open clamps. So on many occasions you'll still find a more traditional tractor and buck rake being used, often with Phil's son Ben at the wheel, who is also a competent JCB 435S operator.
Don't know what you do, but you make me feel fine. And you can't deny we are not just killing time. You should let me know if you want this too. Baby, you just make me feel crazy. A little crazy for you. I feel crazy. A little crazy for you, baby. Yeah, yeah. Little crazy for you now. Oh, yeah, crazy for you.
Now the person on the pit won't have much to do without a team of drivers hauling the silage from the field to the farm. At some point or another, everyone on the silage crew will likely haul some grass. Whether that's from the field right next to the farm or an hour's round trip away, which is nothing unusual for a silage contractor. Some days a single trailer driver may only manage a handful of loads, even without stopping for lunch. The main requirement for a trailer driver is good reversing skills, as they will often need to reverse one of Phil's 9 14-ton Richard Western silage trailers into very tight pits. A skill that comes naturally for anyone that grew up working on a farm. A good pit man or woman will watch the trailers back and beat their horns or shout on the CB radio if disaster is imminent, especially if there's a new or less experienced driver on the crew. The trailer crews will stay in constant contact on the CB radios in order to avoid meeting each other halfway down a narrow country lane, as well as to have some friendly banter to help pass the long days away. To make it on a silage crew, you will need a good sense of humour and thick skin. British farmers are fortunate enough to work in the stunning countryside for a living. As a contractor, you'll see more of those amazing views than most. Phil's patch includes some of the most awe-inspiring scenery in the whole of the British Isles. After many weeks of silage, it's time to start thinking about cereal harvest, such as wheat, oats and barley. For Phil's staff, this will bring long days baling and hauling hundreds of acres worth of straw bales, much of which Phil will have purchased for himself and will therefore require transporting for storage before being sold on or used on his own farm for feed and bedding. For Peter and Steve, this means a sudden change of scenery as they switch from mowing lush green fields of grass to chasing an endless landscape of golden straw swaths which require packing into large bales of consistent size and density with their Class and Massey balers. Bales are quickly moved and stacked, ready to be loaded onto bale trailers or one of Phil's many lorries which make for faster road transport. Stacking the bales while they await transport also protects them from the unpredictable British weather. While the harvest time may have meant a change of scenery for some of Phil's team, on most days throughout the summer months there'll be a silage crew out working somewhere on second or third cut, either clamping silage or producing round bales wrapped in plastic. If not working on silage or straw, there's always slurry that needs applying. Towards the end of the summer comes the maize season. This will normally be around October, but can vary based on when the crop was planted and how much sun and rain there has been. A good crop of maize, which is essentially a variety of sweet corn plant, will stand very tall. Maize requires a special attachment to be harvested. Phil has two of the larger 12-row headers, one for each of his foragers. A wider header ensures maximum throughput of the harvester and reduces ground travel, which towards the end of the summer can help prevent getting bogged down as the weather starts to turn and the fields become wetter. Maize is one of the few crops that can be harvested in wet conditions, but that's something everyone wants to avoid, as rain usually leads to machines getting stuck in the wet fields. Another benefit of a wider 12-row header is that the trailer driver can fit alongside the harvester for the first trip around the headland of the field or when striking out across the middle. This saves the forager driver from having to point the spout directly behind, which can be tricky and usually leads to waste, as well as covering the following tractor in maize. Trailer drivers soon learn to keep their sunroof closed when performing this manoeuvre to avoid a cab full of maize. maize is a fairly unique crop as it's often used in special power stations for electricity generation. The harvested maize is carted to a special power plant where it's fed into a large digester. The maize then breaks down and gives off a combustible gas. The gas is collected and used to power special large engines that drive the electric generators, which feed electricity into the national grid. At the end of each digestion cycle, the digesters are cleaned out and the whole cycle starts again. A byproduct of this process is a liquid slurry called digestate. The slurry is rich in nutrients, so is collected and spread back onto the fields in the same way you would spread farmyard slurry and dung. Phil has a big fleet of lorries, tankers and specialist application systems to handle this entire process from end to end. When not dealing with digestate, there is also the more traditional farm waste that needs attending to. For this, Phil has a large selection of pumps, long reach stirrers, and various umbilical systems to complement the lineup of slurry tankers, dung spreaders, and Xerium systems. An essential for lagoon clearance is the 360 digger, which makes light work of the job. As the maize season comes to a close, the winter months begin, which gives Phil's drivers a chance to cut back the hours and prepare themselves and the machinery so they are ready to do it all over again the following summer. The winter months are also the time of year when the farming world comes together at machinery shows, charity tractor runs, and other types of events.